Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Today is a very special day, Rosh Chodesh Adar. We begin with the month of Adar. It says, Mishenichnas Adar Mar B'Simcha. As we go into the month of Adar, we add in joy. And this is a month where we add lots of joy into our life, especially with the holiday of Purim. But it says the sign of the month, every single month has its own unique sign, is this eyes as a fish. As a fish, the eyes of the fish are always open, like God's eyes upon the Jewish people. And so may God's eyes be upon us, and may we only have a very much good luck this month. In this week's Torah portion, Parshat Mishpatim, Mishpatim literally means laws, is because this week's Torah portion is a chock full of laws. You have 54 Torah portions, 613 commandments, and 52, I believe, of the laws are in this week's Torah portion, meaning close to 10% of all the laws of the entire Torah are stuck into this week's Torah portion, which would make sense as it's the week after the Ten Commandments. Nevertheless, it says the Ten Commandments was the greatest revelation in the history of the world. We have where the Jewish people actually heard God's voice speaking in front of 3 million people. We saw thunder. We heard lightning. We actually heard and saw the greatest revelation in the history of the world. And so you would think that this week's Torah portion would talk about, if we're going to choose the laws after such a high, where the Jewish people were brought to the highest limits. It says to the 50th the 50th gate of wisdom, after being brought through these 49 levels from Mitzrayim. You would think the laws would be all about the spiritual laws of the Torah, but instead, if you read about the laws go through very much basics of the Torah and simple ideas: how we deal with employees, how we deal with work, how we have to tithe, how we have to deal with the field, how we have to deal with people that we're working with, assault and kidnapping, and every aspects of damages, of tort, of damages of animals and damages of ground, and different guardianships of different protection levels of if we pay someone and how much we pay them to protect something, or if they watch something for free, if someone borrows something, or if we give someone as a gift. Talking about all of the judicial proceedings, we really don't talk about much spiritual ideas. At the end, we get into the idea of Shabbos, of the holidays of Shabbos and Yom Tov, but primarily the laws deal with what's called Bein Adam L'Chavero, between man and his friend, but really the basic laws. Employees, employers, aspects of business, not to cheat anyone, take care of those who are in need, the idea of charity. And so the question is, why after such a great revelation, and the greatest revelation in the history of the world, when we talk about the spiritual ideas of putting on tefillin, of eating kashrut, of eating kosher, of Shabbat we mentioned, but the spiritual aspects of learning Torah and all the spiritual ideas that we deal with in the Judaism, these laws, if you would look at them, you wouldn't say they're Judaic laws, you would say they're practical laws. Most of these laws today are implemented in the American legal system from an English common law, based of course on biblical law, but which was the foundation for all law. But there are basic society ideas on how we have to treat people. And the answer, the Rebbe explains, is exactly why we have this after the reading of the Ten Commandments. The Jewish people are on such a high, and so what happens is when you get really spiritual, sometimes you forget about being grounded. We get very excited about a moment, but we forget that that's not our practice. We can't live in Sinai. We can't live in that moment. We have to take that moment and bring that energy into our daily lives. And that is what happens. Many people, they get a high, they get excited about something, but they don't make practical applications into their lives. They don't make practical steps of how our daily lives is going to be. It's like on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the highest energy of the entire day, and we read about in the afternoon reading of Yom Kippur, what do we read about? We read about illicit relationships, forbidden relationships, totally non-connected to the spirituality of Yom Kippur. But it's about reminding us that the day after is so important, because you come and get a spiritual high and we don't bring that into our daily lives, then the high is not worth anything, because it's a very it's short-ended. And so the Torah, after giving us this very spiritual and deep experience, tells us, how do we really experience Torah? It's through the practical living. It's how we treat people. It's how we treat our employees. It's how we treat our animals. It's how we treat damages. It's how we bring the Torah values into our daily lives. And that's how we really connect to a Torah true idea. And so as we go into the Shabbos Parshat Mishpatim, it reminds us of the very important saying someone once came to Hillel and he asked him, teach me the entire Torah on 1 foot, and he says, don't do to others what you wouldn't want to do to yourself, and the rest is commentary. That is the meaning of this week's Torah portion. After such a spiritual experience, remember, it's how we treat others that's really important. Shabbat Shalom, and enjoy this weekend and begin the holiday of Purim. See you tonight at 6 p.m. and tomorrow at 10 a.m. Shabbat Shalom.